everybody's going to find a reason to say no to anything in Washington. Because anything is political risk. Doing nothing is the easiest thing to do. And you see that with like Thomas Massey saying no, it's going to run up our deficits, giving Democrats a talking point in the process. It's like, okay, well, I mean, you go home and tell people they have a 25% increase on their taxes, and at the same time that you're also voting no to no avail on no spending cuts and everything else. You know what I mean? Like, if you actually want to make a tangible difference, you got to be a part of that solution.
He's Donald Trump's #1 enemy in Congress, Chicago Senator Dick Durbin. And now Dick Durbin has a new scheme, a government takeover of your credit card. Today, consumers have thousands of choices in credit cards, all with equal, strong security. But Durbin's plan is less competition and less security. And that means more risk for your credit and your identity. Tell Republicans in Congress, stop Dick Durbin's takeover of your credit card before it's too late.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please.
Keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs.
It's time for our main event.
Well, a very good Tuesday to you coming out of this holiday weekend. I trust everybody had a wonderful Memorial Day, a very, very good time to remember all of the heroes that came before us that ensured we can do things like this in the greatest country in the world has ever seen. I'm Josh Holmes, along with Comfortably Smug, Michael Duncan, and John Ashbrook, left to right across your radio dial. Listen, if you didn't get a chance over Memorial Day, just sort of reflect on all of the sacrifices that our men and women in uniform have made, and those who made the ultimate sacrifice. Take a minute and think about it, because ultimately that's what all of this stuff is about. It's the reason why we can do all of it and why we can have fun here on the Ruthless Variety Program. My sense is that Nazi Germany, or what Hamas has in mind for us, would be something different than a Ruthless Variety Program, and certainly something less than the liberty and the freedom that we enjoy in this country. So thank you for joining us. We've got a very fun show. Listen, there's a bunch of things that have happened here in the last week. There's a tendency for all of the media to focus in on promises and process. Right, they cover what it is that people say that they're going to do, and then the process by which they go about doing them. Not a lot of conversation dedicated to the hard, painstaking work that it takes to get those things done. And if anything, you get a headline the next day like, they passed this and that. Here we go. Yeah, everybody thought they were going to do that because Republicans are Republicans. Two things in particular. You're all aware of the budget reconciliation bill, the tax cuts, which we long flagged as the most difficult part of the Trump agenda because of the narrow majority that House Republicans have and their ability to get that done. And for the last 60, 90 days, you've had every member of the press corps and pundits and everybody else being like, well, I don't know. Let's find the three dissidents who say they're not going to vote for it, and maybe it's up in the air. Maybe they can't get it done. But just recall, this is a cornerstone of the economic agenda that President Trump talked about on the campaign trail in 2024, and what unlocks everything that he's doing internationally and everything else. I mean, you can settle our domestic stuff. Without it, there's 24% tax increase on Americans. It's insane. And they never talk. Of course, the media never talks about it that way. But a bunch of different constituencies within any majority, but certainly this majority, you've got a very diverse group of Republicans from different places around the country, and finding that balance is very difficult. Speaker Johnson found that balance.
Yeah. I mean, has any politician been doubted more in their leadership in such a short period of time than this man? And has anyone delivered more in that period of time? It's incredible. I feel like at every turn that guy is doubted. Back to your whole point of they only focus on promise and process. And the way that the media talks about it is slipping.
Yeah.
Speaker Johnson's majority is slipping.
I'm not sure he has the SWAT.
How can he put it together?
Yeah.
And time again, he proves them wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just a really important part of the process. Now, listen, this is a long thing. This was maybe step 3 in the process. You needed to get a package. You needed to get out of House committees. You needed to ultimately pass the House. Now it goes to the Senate. It's going to look a little bit different. And then they got to reconcile their differences, actually get to a point where the final process is President Trump signing the big, beautiful bill into law. You know, I wouldn't say we're halfway home, but we're almost halfway home. And this part is what everybody flagged as a huge problem. We're going to talk about all of that. Another piece, and we've got a guest on to talk about something that happened in the Senate this week, thin margins as well, but there's this whole electric vehicle mandate and a bunch of states adopting the California standard of mandating, basically you get rid of your gas-powered vehicle.
Yuck, gross.
Yeah, but a whole bunch of states did this.
Imagine following California into fucking anything.
Yeah. I mean, seriously.
They're like, sorry, you no combines. You need to get your fields cleared with a scooter.
Yeah.
Brought to you by California.
You know, we're looking for good government management. You know what? Let's see what California's up
Yeah,
to.
I want to adopt what they got going on.
It's going so well.
So, but again, this was a cornerstone promise that the Trump administration had made during the course of the campaign. It was an open discussion, right? Like, environmental rules aren't typically top of mind for most voters. This one was. He talked about it on the stump each and every night that he went out during the 24 election. And it was about making sure that Americans weren't forced to just get rid of the shit that they loved and start importing technology from China in order to get to work in the morning. Mm-hmm. And people were like, no, I don't want that. Well, I mean, no talk about that. The EPA has done everything they can do internally to roll these things back. You've seen Energy and Interior do similar things. But ultimately what they needed was an act of Congress. And they needed the House to act, which they did a couple of months ago. And they needed the Senate to figure out a way to cobble together a coalition with arcane rules that I'm not going to get into here, but it was complicated in order to fulfill the promise. They did it. Like, you probably didn't even know about this. It didn't hit headlines, or at least not something that you're probably...
That's what the libs were hoping for.
Yeah.
You know, the libs want to change our society from the top down, and they don't want anybody to complain about it in the process.
And also, it flies directly in the face and against the wishes of what the American people have made clear. I mean, you look at what used electric car prices look like. Mm-hmm. You look at how long electric cars sit on dealerships. Talk to someone who owns a car dealership. Like, how much confidence do you have in the electric vehicles you've got to sell, and how much confidence do you have in the gas vehicles you got to sell? What are people actually buying? So when you have a situation like you're seeing California's already created a problem out of, when you've got a government trying to force your hand, you never get a good outcome.
Mm-hmm.
Never get a good outcome, but it took an action that you may not even know happened, because certainly the libs don't want you to know about it, that the Senate actually did an incredible job. The leader of that effort is with us here today, Shelley Moore Capito. She's going to talk a lot about that. And then we've got some variety. Diddy is going to pop up. It's been too long.
Oh, boy.
You knew it was coming, though. Progrum can't resist this
That
conversation.
was too juicy.
And there's a little political nexus in there. Mm-hmm. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to have a lot of fun along the way. So let's get into this reconciliation bill quickly. Listen, you all know that all of your tax rates are going up if this thing didn't get done. Democrats don't want to talk about it in terms of tax cuts. Oh, it's a big tax cut. No, it's preventing a tax increase. But it also adds key components: no tax on tips, no tax on overtime.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yeah.
You know a lot about the Senate. How the hell did no tax on tips get, like, unanimous vote in the Senate? Like, you couldn't get free donuts and coffee to get unanimous votes in the Senate. Like, how the hell does that happen?
Listen, President Trump has a hot hand, and he's the secret weapon when it comes to trying to congeal different viewpoints within a Republican conference in the House and the Senate. I can tell you that not everybody thinks that pro-growth tax policy includes no tax on tips, but this was a centerpiece of the Trump campaign. They know who the leader of the party is. They know who has the biggest voice. They know he wants it done. So it's done, right? I mean, that's really what it boils down to. other components. I mean, this is a very populist tax bill. If you think about tax bills that Republicans have done over recent years, nobody can claim with a straight face that this is like a tax cut for the rich. You just can't. It's just not. First of all, it's the same tax rate for everybody other than people who are making their living on tips or overtime or things like that.
You know, Democrats will try, and their press secretaries working in legacy media will do their best effort, but nobody's reading them because nobody believes them. They want to know the actual details. The people who are consuming the information are a lot smarter than the people writing the information would ever believe.
You know what my favorite part about tax debates is like when Democrats start losing the argument and all of a sudden you see these impassioned arguments out of concern for our national debt.
Oh, yeah, they care so much about it.
These are people who like wave through $6 trillion of spending on like green, new energy, like shit that you're never going to benefit from. And
they're like, we sent billions to Stacey Abrams like 20 minutes before we wheeled Biden out. But listen, guys, we gotta watch spending a little bit.
It's like, oh my God, what about the debt?
Yeah,
right. The only way to fix the climate is to spend $2 billion with Stacey Abrams' NGO.
Yeah,
you can't do it otherwise. I mean, let's be honest. You know, the climate needs Stacey Abrams. I mean, she's the solution.
And then, a month ago, they're having sit-ins to prevent Elon from entering buildings, and they're like, no.
We cannot cut our NGOs.
Well, the trans studies in Tanzania are critical to our national infrastructure.
Essential.
There's no question about that. But then you think of like attaché things that are like hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars of the American taxpayer money that are meant to like just solve political problems for Democrats, like with the pier. In Gaza.
Oh man!
Right? They like collapsed and harmed service members as a result of just the absolutely ill-conceived notion that you were doing something to help because you needed a constituency within the United States, a pro-Hamas constituency, to think that you weren't like pro-Israel.
It's unbelievable. And the thing is getting that like no tax on tips, the fact that that's a component, I think really underscores, and it's going to make it a lot harder for Democrats to be like, no, this is a rich person's bill.
Yeah, and so I think that was obviously important to the president. I think also for conservatives, House Freedom Caucus members and stuff like that, there were also some deals that they made on the spending side, which I think improved the bill dramatically. You know, it was originally these Medicaid reforms were going to start, I think, in 2029, and they
backed them up,
moved it up to 2026 and stuff like that. So we're going to see the savings of cutting all of that fraud out of the system a lot sooner in the bill's package. Now,
and if anybody who says Medicaid cuts, these are work requirements.
Right.
These are things that we all agree on.
Literally part-time. For able-bodied with no dependents and no disability.
Yeah, I mean, these are things that everyone agrees, and they keep saying Medicaid cuts throw people off.
It's another 80-20. Like Democrats are super committed to the 20% on that.
But, you know, there are two houses of Congress, and the bill now goes to the Senate, and Medicaid will take center stage because there are a bunch of Republican senators from rural states who want to make sure that waste, fraud, and abuse was written in the right way so that it doesn't hurt these rural hospitals that are struggling out there. And so what they want to make sure is that everything that was written so quickly in the House to pass it by this deadline at Memorial Day doesn't hurt their rural
look, the Senate's going to take a
providers.
different path, no question about it. But I just want to speak to the Medicaid thing for a minute. Look, it's a bipartisan. Medicaid is a bipartisan thing in large part because red states across this country balance their books in large part out of federal largesse. If you're wondering how we got $36 trillion in debt, it's not just Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, all of that. That's the predominant driver. But it's also what's happened, I would say, for 15 years, basically since the financial crisis in 2008, which maybe since 9/11 with all of the federal funds that went into building up law enforcement and all those things. Is ultimately states have never had to make a difficult decision. Everybody's like, well, why don't the federal government operate more like states? We'll have to balance the budget each and every. Well, I'll tell you why, because the federal government doesn't have a federal government that's backfilling all their dumb fuck decisions, right? Which is what a lot of these states have been doing. And so there's a revenue, like Medicaid is a state administered program. except for the fact that the federal government is the one that is predominantly funding it. So what people in the House of Representatives has suggested is that maybe we have some kind of a cost-sharing agreement here,
Yeah, right.
where you guys, the promises that you're making through like Medi-Cal, in the worst offender of all of them, but all of these various state-based Medicaid things are, I don't know, if you guys have to make tough budget decisions, fucking make them. Like, don't count on us just sending blind bundles of cash like Obama did to Iran.
They're like, no, why should we have skin in the game?
Yeah.
Right. And I remember joking with one of my good buddies in college about, hey, did you ever notice the highways in West Virginia are as paved perfectly in a way that none of the other highways around this country are? And it's because Senator Bob Byrd for years was the most powerful appropriator in the United States Senate. And his highways were funded and paved by the federal government because he was so powerful. And we always joked about that, but there's a lesson in there, in that this president deserves to get his bill passed through the Senate. And the only way to get it passed through the Senate is to make sure that a lot of these rural state senators are not overlooked. And there are so many of them who are concerned that the fine print about Medicaid and rural hospitals and everything else underneath that doesn't hurt their constituents. So I just think
You got a lot more sympathy for that than I do, Pat.
well, it's not about sympathy. It's about reality. It's about how do we get it across the finish line. If you can't convince somebody to vote yes, you're not going to get what you want.
Yeah.
And I think that we're going to see play out over the next 2 months a lot of these rural state members say,
I think they're going to get to yes, dude.
It's-
I mean,
it's
look
not
at
about what we want.
Look at the
It's
people
about-
who got to yes in the House. I mean,
Yeah.
like you mentioned him, I believe on the episode last week, but Chip Roy.
Yeah.
Chip Roy got to yes on this.
Yeah.
And he did the smart thing, which is he didn't deal himself out.
That's
right?
so smart. It's the distinction between
Right.
Chip, and I've known Chip for 15, 20 years, but it's this distinction between Chip and Massey, where if you want to shape the package, if you want to be in that room to the end to figure out how to bring those Medicaid reforms from 29 to 26, you need to stay in that conversation.
And Chip Roy also got reimbursement for border states who've been dealing with that whole invasion during the Biden years.
Yeah.
And like he wouldn't have gotten that additional reimbursement on border security if not for being in that room and continuing to negotiate,
pretty
not
sharp.
throwing up your hands.
yeah, I
That's
mean,
pretty
look,
sharp.
guy catches a lot of heat,
Yeah.
and
but he's
Yeah.
but he's also not a pushover.
Right.
And I think the other lesson that can be learned by what Chip Roy did that I know will be taken by these rural state senators is, yes, we don't think illegals should be getting money that belongs to American taxpayers. Yes, we do not think waste, fraud, and abuse should be in the system, but we don't want things written in a way that hurts people who shouldn't be hurt. And so they will be listened to.
Yeah. I think we just got to be for, I mean, my philosophy on all this, be for the most conservative thing possible.
yeah,
This
that's
is
it.
exactly right.
Be for the
You're-
most conservative thing
you're
possible.
exactly right.
Also,
know?
be for what's going to happen,
Right.
which is this thing's going to get done. So figure out how to be a part of that process.
Right. Get on board for the big win.
Exactly. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about the rest of this process. You mentioned a little bit about the Senate. We'll talk about that and where it goes from here right after this.
Every year, America's freight railroads invest $23 billion of their own capital, not taxpayer money, to maintain the world's most productive freight network. That massive scale is key. It enables railroads to move goods with unmatched efficiency, driving down costs for American businesses and consumers. From energy and agriculture to retail and automotive, freight rail serves every corner of the real economy, and it's essential to America's reindustrialization. Put simply, manufacturing depends on rail. Freight rail is America's engine, built on private investment, driving the nation forward. Learn more at aar.org.
Okay, so the big, beautiful bill. White House obviously taking a bit of a victory lap, as is the House of Representatives, about moving this centerpiece of the economic agenda forward. We've got multiple steps. The Senate's got to pass this thing. They're going to have a different look. It's not like at this point you can't fault them. They've done a bunch of different work on this too. They're going to have a little different look. I think the main contours are going to be the same, but it's going to be a different deal. And then it's up to House and the Senate to reconcile their differences. And, whether that is a formal sort of conference committee or whether or not it's done informally. Ultimately, there'd be a substitution that's going to have to pass both one more time before it gets to the president.
Explain that part, the substitution part, so people understand.
Yeah, so, I mean, look, the House and the Senate ultimately need a product that can pass both sides.
Right.
Generally speaking, the way that works is the Senate's going to pass something that doesn't exactly match what it is that the House is doing. Although they've been talking, so I think there's going to be a lot of similarities in it. At that point, in order to make a bill become a law, you have to have some kind of a manager's package. And whether that goes through a formal conference committee where you have members of the House and the Senate that sit on a committee together and actually hash through the differences and pass that out, and then it goes to both chambers, or whether or not there is a negotiation of the leaders of the two with the committee chairman of both sides, and they come up with a mutually agreeable solution that they think can pass, then it's what they just call a substitution. It's just a manager's package where you put it there and they vote both sides. It's not going to they're not going to take like a ping pong approach, which is the other thing that you hear ultimately when you're trying to make a law. If the House has a different view than the Senate, they keep sending back and forth different variations without meeting the middle. That's not happening.
No, and that process allows you to basically cut to the chase.
This is thanks for your views. Thanks for our views.
Yeah.
What do we need to see here? And ultimately, how do you get that over the finish line? Because age doesn't improve. I mean, everybody's going to find a reason to say no to anything in Washington. Because anything is political risk. Doing nothing is the easiest thing to do. And you see that with like Thomas Massey saying no, it's going to run up our deficits, giving Democrats a talking point in the process. It's like, okay, well, I mean, you go home and tell people they have a 25% increase on their taxes, and at the same time that you're also voting no to no avail on no spending cuts and everything else. You know what I mean? Like, if you actually want to make a tangible difference, you got to be a part of that solution. And I think the House, under Speaker Johnson's leadership at this point, has demonstrated that solutions are at hand, that they can deal with that. And I think the Senate is too. I think they've had a pretty good. The one thing I've really respected for those of you who are listening to this, who are sort of under the hood and appreciate like the little pieces of legislative activity and whatnot, it was always the most difficult part serving in Senate leadership, to try to get your people to just pipe down while the other side's dealing with it. You know, because somebody would say something that was egregiously offensive to your people. Like, for example, that Lolota character, where he's like, yeah, we're going to go increase taxes on the top bracket so I can get my state and local tax deduction. Like, there's probably 40 out of 53 senators who are like, fuck you.
Right.
Like, I will never vote for any of that.
There's no Republican senators in New York the last time I checked.
You're right. right. But, like, instead of doing that, which could cause ripples, they just sort of sat on it. You haven't heard a breath from a Republican senator. Credit to Thune, honestly, and the committee people of saying, like, lay low, let them do their business. You're going to get a shot here. And when you get your shot, then we got to come to the middle. Let's not like break all the china while we're doing it. I mean, this is very much under the hood, probably more than you need to know. But that's like the art of getting big things done.
Well, it's never smart to negotiate hypotheticals in public before you really even have your shot to do the thing.
Right.
It's just not smart tactically, right? Like, if you're a ball coach, you're not going out talking about your playbook, before the game.
Totally.
Yeah, you mentioned if you're a ball. I think you guys agree on this. I always look at politics like sports, and I always think about, okay, what's the game clock say? And I've been trying to think, what is the realistic time frame for when the Senate will actually pass something and go back to the House and then go back to the Senate and get it done? And is it the end of the year? Is it the August recess? There's a lot of talk back and forth about that. But one thing someone told me today is that the X date may be pinned to when Scott Besson, our great Treasury Secretary, has suggested that the debt limit needs to be addressed. And that, my friends, comes apparently sometime in July or August. So we're looking
because
at a
recall,
pretty
it
short
rides
clock.
along with it. You're absolutely right. The thing that forces action in Congress are must-do things, right?
It's the only thing. It's so frustrating. The only way Congress is like, oh shit, the house is on fire. I guess we got to get up and do something
Master
about it.
procrastination.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
But it's also human nature in many ways,
Yeah.
in that you know that anything that's significant is going to be controversial, and anything that's controversial when you're in the world of politics is to be avoided. And so they never really want to do anything unless they absolutely have to. So that's why you butt up against deadlines. That's why the end of the year is a big legislating time. That's why the August recess is a big legislating time. That's why things like debt ceilings and then September 30th fiscal year things are big times, because you're up against something that you have to do something before it happens.
I get it. I never moved the trampoline in the backyard till the landscapers are coming.
Exactly. No, it's true. You could do it any day of the week.
Literally any day. You know, the kids never bounce on the thing anymore. Dad and mom sweated out there to put the thing together, and they never fucking use it.
No, I know. It's a real. I hate that.
And now I got a bare spot in the lawn underneath it. I moved the thing. I got to seed it. I just hate it.
So, look, I think the middle of July is where they're talking about with this debt ceiling. For those of us with experience of that, there's always extreme circumstances, right? Extenuating circumstances where you can figure out how to buy a week or two or whatever, which tells you August 1's the deadline. And I heard all week, over the last 2 weeks, everyone telling me, like, no, this is like, they're having huge trouble in the House. It's an end of the year deal just because that's the only way that they're going to have to do something before that. I was like, I don't know, man. It feels like they're closer together on this than they have been an awful lot of things. Like, I think you're going to get it done this week. And then sure enough, they do, which also tells me August 1.
You think so?
I do. Now, there's a chance that you have to hold people in over August, and there's nothing more unpopular internally in the House and the Senate.
But here's what I will say, and I think you guys will all agree with me. If they don't get it done by August 1, they need to keep working until it happens. Like,
I'll tell you right now that that's what they'll do.
I never had an August recess. I worked on Capitol Hill for years and years and years. I never had an August recess. We always had to work right through it. And I think this time they're going to have to. No, this is going to be a very unpopular thing to say. I'm going to get a lot of nasty grams in my text messages. But I feel like everybody has to keep working because Trump's agenda is so important.
Well, I don't care if we get nasty grams. I haven't had resets since middle school.
That's what I'm saying. Since elementary. I think until every illegal alien is out of the country, no recess for Congress.
There you go.
Yeah.
You know, I think the public will support that.
There you go. There you go.
Laying down the gauntlet. This
mean,
guy
come
doesn't
on.
mess around.
Come on. Recess? We're talking about recess?
We're talking about
We
recess.
all know how hard Smug works.
Yeah, I know.
Non-stop.
I
Why
know.
can't Congress work half as hard?
Hardest working man in show business.
What did I say today? That 4 o'clock pud pulling thing can't be rescheduled. I love you so much.
While I'm
Slim.
in traffic driving back from the swamp, I'm going to think about that.
So our question of the day, you just heard our timeline. Our question of the day for all of you is, when does Trump sign the big beautiful bill? When do you think that's going to be? Frankly, I think he comes back on the day after Labor Day, and they put ink on that. But I'd be interested in what you all think. You all have business. You know, you've got a plan for what your tax situation looks like, or you've got a job and you want to make sure that you've got some cash in the bank in order to fund kids' softball and school and everything else. Like, when would you do it? I would do it tomorrow if I could, but interested in your prognostications on all of that. We'll be joined by Shelley Moore Capito to talk about the second thing that we talked about. And we're going to get to that, but we're also just going to talk a little bit of our last question of the day. Wonderful episode, by the way.
Great
Yeah,
episode.
that was
Jillian
excellent.
Michaels.
Great guest.
Incredible. And your questions and answers right after this.
Qualcomm is designing and developing the next generation of AI, connectivity, and low-power, high-performance computing right here in the U.S. We support President Trump's call for America's industrial revival, an agenda focused on restoring strength, scaling innovation, and securing our competitive edge. Our partnerships with Aramco Digital and Humane reflect that mission, putting U.S. technology to work, transforming global industries, and proving that American leadership still sets the standard. Qualcomm, engineering human progress.
Hardworking Americans know when it's time to roll up our sleeves and get the job done. Now is the time to unleash our nation's energy to create jobs, secure our future, and make life better, more affordable, and full of opportunity for all Americans. That's the power of America's oil and natural gas. Learn more at lightsonenergy.org. Paid for by the American Petroleum Institute.
So Jillian Michaels, lovely human being, very easy to talk to, genuinely normal.
Yeah, very
You
much
always
not
wonder.
DC, not DC. You know, the way she talks and everything. I loved her. It was a breath of fresh air.
You always wonder when somebody has like a primetime network television show for a number of years. It's like number one. You figure that kind of exposure makes somebody weird.
Exact opposite. Like
She's the
most
opposite.
normal person for being like one of the most famous people, recognizable people on Earth.
Yeah.
And it struck me when she was talking about like the way Megyn Kelly just destroyed Jake Tapper. That would be like the best show ever. Like a good cop, bad cop, Jillian Michaels, Megyn Kelly show. Like
Who'd be the good cop?
But that's the thing. If you're getting grilled by Megan and you get caught lying, you're dropping her doing 50.
It's bad cop and worst cop. Because they're both just ball busters.
It all depends on what you've done.
Yeah.
You know?
I love it.
Each one of them have their thing. No, you're right. That would make for a hell
That'd
of
be a funny show.
Great
Bad
show.
cop,
Yeah.
worst cop. Yeah.
I'd like to put it like it's not necessarily about the fats, which Jillian has majored in screaming at the fats, but like if just emasculating, like those sort of like a Gen
Just
Z.
bring in the journos. It's like Jurassic Park when they had to feed the raptors. Like bring a journo in a cage.
like all the
Lower him down like a
He gets
gun.
lowered down and he sees it's Jillian and Megan.
like all the people, all the younger generation that shows up at HR and is like, I'm not feeling appreciated, and I just need a little bit of thought process put behind what you have in me and all of these things. Like then you're like, congratulations, Jillian and Megan have something for you.
Yeah, you're in the cage. You're getting dropped into the little raptor enclosure, and it's Jillian
And those
Megyn Kelly.
And those two are going to spend the next hour yelling at you.
I mean, for folks who haven't seen it, you have to see Megyn Kelly interview Jake Tapper.
Oh, it's so
it
good.
was amazing.
So good.
amazing.
But they would make a formidable
Yeah,
force.
great
It
team.
would.
All right, so our question of the day, how do we make America healthy again? And plus, we added the horse component. I just threw that in at the end. But it seems like the people... Like,
What was the
responded.
horse question?
Well, we had that poor, unfortunate couple in England who had a house that was zoned for horse semen extraction, and they didn't provide any.
Yeah.
So they were in a unfortunate Hobson's choice of either having to figure out how to extract the horse semen or lose their home.
So the bonus question that we asked people to respond to is, would you jerk off a horse to save your house?
Good God.
Yeah. This is off the rails.
Yeah, so we had all of that.
So
Anyway,
a multi-part for the audience, and nobody disappointed.
and when you liked and you subscribed and sent your answers, we read them. We start with a voice.
Okay, first comment comes from Rat Boyd. And that comment says, take the high fructose corn syrup out of Coca-Cola, put back the real sugar and the cocaine. we just have the best listeners.
Amazing.
I love them so much.
The answer to making America healthy again is legalizing cocaine. That's the view here on the Ruthless Variety
They
Program.
make that the formula for their Diet Coke, and they're like, seriously, people start losing weight when they're drinking.
I mean, super productive.
Yeah, it's
I don't know
amazing.
if you've noticed.
Clean your house,
Yeah.
go dancing all night.
A little bit of a weird jaw curl, but other than that, very productive. Smart.
Best sense of humor.
Dunks, what do we got?
This is from Keith Kravitz. Keith writes, taxed unhealthy processed foods to subsidize healthy food costs to make healthy foods cost less than unhealthy. Same as they did with cigarettes to pay for commercials to get people to quit. You have to incentivize healthy eating. It will save our healthcare systems billions.
Now,
It's interesting.
It's very interesting. And what a lot of people don't know is that Keith is actually Lenny's younger brother. And he's taken a very hard line on healthcare in this country.
I don't think I agree with Keith. I don't tend to think we should be taxing people's choices.
Not a huge fan of
not a fan of
state-sponsored
that.
incentive
This
structures.
feels like a
a
Bloomberg thing.
It is a Bloomberg thing, but it's an innovative
But I think
idea.
I think it gets at an important component of this is like people. Maybe I didn't realize this, but people do not really have good nutrition education in this country.
Yep.
Yeah, we had the food pyramid. It was all bullshit.
We just really don't understand what healthy
And
food
again,
is.
it's because the food pyramid is a perfect example.
you eat
And
75
so much
loaves
this-
of bread, and you're fine.
But it's the reason that it got created like that is lobbyists.
No, it
Like,
wasn't.
there's-
It wasn't lobbyists. It was because there was an
lobbyists that
Italian.
Duncan's friends with.
It was an Italian.
It was an
It was an
Italian.
Italian being like, eat pasta for 7.
It was
of
Italian
your 10
lobbyists.
servings. Yeah, that's exactly what it was.
Working for big ravioli,
Big ravioli. Yeah, you need all your.
big spaghetti on the case.
That's right.
Hey, I'm
telling kids to have like 40 bales of spaghetti.
Larry
a day.
Lasagna. I think it was PhD Larry Lasagna.
Larry lasagna.
Trying to get some food over here.
I'm drawing a pyramid here.
And the fat milkmaids were pretty effective.
Well,
for
I
years.
think dairy, has been like from what folks are saying now. If you're focusing on natural foods, like dairy has apparently been treated like avoid dairy when actually
Yeah,
it's good for you.
unfairly maligned. Yeah.
While carbs have been shoved down people's throats, and I mean, like the comment said, processed foods have just been a problem. And that's like the first thing you hand kids.
What
Yep.
sugar does to your body
Yeah.
is something we need to think more about. The way it spikes your, blood sugar levels and stuff, and the way that like hunger begets hunger and that sort of thing. Just look at it. Like educate yourself about that.
Unless
sugar-
it's distilled in some kind of a tin apparatus and put forth in
exactly.
a silky evening beverage with maybe 1 block of ice.
Yeah.
In which case, it's fantastic.
The sugar I understand, but I don't think our listeners in Wisconsin will be very happy with the dairy piece.
Wait, no, I think they would
No,
love
I
what
think,
Smug
did
said.
you hear what they say? He
Unfair
loves the
me.
dairy.
Oh, you want more
Unfairly
dairy?
Yeah.
What's
Yeah.
more dairy?
Oh, well, put Smug on the ballot for Supreme Court in Wisconsin next time.
That's right. He's a cheesehead.
Well, it's probably more appealing than that guy's platform, which was like make your last vote count. Was that?
What was it?
Make your last vote count. The Democrats we count them after the last one.
I should just be in charge. That's
You
what I
should.
think.
That is, I would get on board. I'd be a secretary for that movement.
Yeah.
Okay. Third, Mug.
This is from Fixed Point. They write, I can't afford to lose my home, so I've preemptively acquired a horse. Gotta practice. Good God.
God, wait, what is he going to do?
I can't afford to lose my home, so I've acquired a horse.
Yeah.
What's his last sentence?
You need a backup
said,
plan.
gotta practice.
He's got to
Gotta
practice.
practice.
Gotta practice.
There was also some comments that I saw on there. There was like maybe we confused the Jillian Michaels message about like working out and doing all of that stuff with the horse guy and all of that. We can accomplish both at one time. It's an aerobic activity.
My God.
Some level.
You know, it's so funny. It's so funny. So we were doing the production meeting today, and Sarah in our office was sitting there, and we were talking about the story of, this horse semen, extraction facility, and
Yeah.
the people are going to lose their house. And we were like, basically, the question is, Sarah, like, you gonna jerk off some horses to save your house?
Would you?
And she was like, and this is the funniest thing. She's hilarious.
Without skipping a beat.
Without skipping a beat, she was like, can you imagine having kids in that house and like they won't do their chores and stuff, and you have to say to them, do you know how many horses I jacked off to put this roof over your house?
Ungrateful kids.
Oh my God, that's good.
It was all time.
Oh, that's so good.
I'm so glad we don't have an HR department.
No, it's true. People argue that maybe we should have one, but I don't think so. You wouldn't get this kind
You
of
wouldn't
content.
get that.
When else are you going to get a tax bill broken down and then a horse jerk off segment?
Yeah.
You're
Only
never
here.
gonna get that.
Look at Smug is horrified.
No, he's thinking about like if you knocked out the horse. Remember, this is how the whole animal kingdom thing started.
Yeah.
Whether or not that would improve your chances of keeping your house, I don't know.
Hey, it's not below the belt if somebody like Sarah likes it.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying.
that's exactly right. When we come back in Variety, the Diddy trial will be the first time that the fellas weigh in on any of that. We've been tempted before, but like we're kind of watching a little. Keeping a distance from all of that, but it's come into our circle here. It involves President Obama, which whew,
I called it.
Larry Sinclair?
Holy shit.
He's rested and ready in the back of a limousine.
Google it. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Google it.
You never want to Google it. I'm just telling, warning
Don't
you.
do it.
You don't do it.
Please don't do it.
I'm a real wild card this episode.
Yeah, we have a detail on all of that right after this.
You did all the right things. You worked hard, you worked your way up, and you invested your money in a 401k or other retirement plan. Your future is all set, right? Wrong. The retirement system as we know it is currently under attack from misguided policymakers in D.C. The Trump tax cuts are set to expire this year. Renewing them will be a big fight in Congress. Right now, the tax code protects 401ks, IRAs, and other plans that help you save. Some people want to change that. Your representatives in Congress must protect the tax advantages that more than 100 million Americans rely on to save for retirement. You deserve policies that build on the current retirement system to secure your financial future, not jeopardize it. If Americans know one thing, it's resilience. To stay resilient, we need immediate action from our leaders. Head to helpusretire.org to take action and reach out to your representatives in Congress today. Help Us Retire is sponsored by the Investment Company Institute, representing asset managers serving individual investors.
Okay, I don't know how much you guys have been paying attention to this Diddy trial. I've basically put it aside. It's everywhere, and people are talking about it, and you expect all kinds of different things. But I've also lived in the world with the Epstein thing and all that. Tell me when you've solved the case.
Right.
know?
I read Baby Oil and Freak Offs, and then I put it down. And I was like, nope.
Yeah.
I don't want to know more.
You tell me when you've solved all of this and have an executive summary. One thing caught our eye, and this is according to the New York Post, in Graphic 1. Sean Diddy Combs took drugs every day, including Obama-shaped ecstasy pills, ex-assistant says. So what you're looking at if you're listening and watching on YouTube are a green, maybe an orangish, a pink, I don't know, or in a blue face of Barack Obama. And
It's like Flintstone pills, but they're Obama's head and they're ecstasy.
they've been imprinted upon ecstasy, which, look, that's innovative. He's apparently custom made his drugs, which that shows a certain amount of class there at the Freak Off party, that they've got sort of a bespoke version of these drugs.
Politically relevant.
Yeah, right. There were various pills, but in one form of a former president's face. Combs, a one-time personal assistant, David James, said in a Manhattan federal court of what types of ecstasy pills he saw his boss take. Which former president? The prosecutor, Christy Slavic, asked. President Obama, James responded. James was named by the prosecution's star witness, R&B singer Cassie Ventura, as Bad Boy Records founder's trusted assistant who helped arrange these freak-offs. And you recall, the whole backstory of this is that this dude had, parties all the time, got everybody naked and drugged up, banged in unspeakable ways, including at one point very unfairly maligning the star of Family Matters. Remember
Really?
Remember the debt? No,
The cop guy?
He's denied all allegations. But this popped up a couple of months. It was Carl Winslow.
Wait, he was at these?
He was America's dad.
Yeah, no, Carl Winslow and some dude who'd apparently been at these things was like, yeah, Diddy banged Carl Winslow.
No,
he did.
It didn't happen.
No. And
in real life?
No, and immediately Carl Winslow was like, that fucking never,
Right.
never happened.
No.
But
This
for
guy,
me,
Winslow's a hero.
it was a real, a dagger. I mean, one of the few times that I've paid attention to
All
this, 'cause
these
I was
Hollywood
like, no
people,
way.
all of them are just weird.
To
They're
quote-
all weird people, and they're all in on this.
To quote from the theme song of Family Matters, it's a rare condition in this day and age to see any good news on the newspaper page.
Oh, that is a fact.
Love and tradition.
Love and tradition.
Family Matters. It's even harder to find. Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun.
It got me to think about it, though.
Must
Yeah.
be some
You know,
magic
where
clue.
it's like some guy clearly had some kind of a mistaken identity with Carl Winslow, and somebody who thought was Carl Winslow that was allegedly banging on.
That's horrifying.
It is.
Getting banged by Diddy.
I feel like my childhood's getting banged
I
right
know.
now. Please.
No, no.
Stop.
But like, so it just kind of opens the aperture. Like, how many people that were 80s sitcom guys closely resembling Carl Winslow could it have been? Because it's like, if it wasn't him.
Can you imagine?
I mean, can you imagine it was like the butler from...
So here's the thing. So you guys remember how there was that, I guess, was it on Epstein Island or in his house, that painting of Bill Clinton wearing a dress? Well, I guess wearing the Monica
I think it was in his house in New York.
Okay. And like everyone knew like Clinton's connected with the Epstein thing. This Obama thing, I mean, to me, this seems like, Bill Clinton in a dress, but with the Diddy thing.
I don't know. I think it's a novelty that drug
it
dealers
wouldn't surprise
do.
me.
I think
A
it's
lot
like a
of the
novelty
Obama
thing.
people, they're involved in Hollywood and things like that.
Well, to Smug's point, though, there were many rallies for President Obama where he rolled out Diddy.
yeah.
And he rolled out
Yep.
Jay-Z.
I guess you're right.
And there was an effort on behalf of the Obama campaign back in 2012 to sort of use their star power
Yep.
to help pack the house for his various rallies. So
I mean, they're
not
Hollywood
like they're
people
strangers.
now. They've got Netflix deal, and there's all these stories going around of Michelle Obama's considering divorcing Barack Obama. That pops up right when the Diddy thing pops up.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's interesting.
My only thought in all of this.
I mean, it might have been like the day after Diddy got indicted that those things started getting out.
oh, look at you connecting the dots like a beautiful mind.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like it.
I mean, there's no coincidences. There's never any coincidence.
Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Charlie Kelly with all the string. Yeah. I think
it's worth
America
looking into.
I think
worth
America
looking
owes Suge Knight an apology.
Yeah.
He called this from day one
He was
on Diddy.
He was the only OG in
He
that operation.
fucking knew.
as
At
it
the
turns
Source
out.
Awards, he was like, no.
Yeah.
Don't go with that producer who wants to be all up in the videos.
And you can't help but think that Tupac made his way through purgatory into the
Oh, no.
pearly gates in order to pull the strings on some of this stuff for
Yeah.
retribution of what they did to that poor guy.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? I mean, I got to tell you, though. I mean, you don't have the time to follow all. We should probably roll Hollywood Hen here at some point to give us like an upshot of what's happening. But it just seems like whatever it is, I'm not going to like it.
No.
You know? But you throw Obama's face on some drugs, I'll talk about it.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, we'll
I'm
talk
just
about
shocked it was ecstasy. I thought the kids were into pure MDMA now.
Well, maybe that's
that-
what. Maybe they're shorthanding it.
Yeah,
They might be shorthanding
possible.
it.
But ecstasy's kind of a throwback as a term.
Yeah, it's like a '90s.
Yeah.
Maybe a '90s drug
Yeah.
of choice. Not that I would know anything about that. Anyway, just a reminder: he's racketeering, conspiracy, sex trafficking for fraud, prostitution, everything. The whole thing is pending, and we'll wait to see how that all plays out. But anytime they put a political figure on some drugs, we're here for you.
We're going to talk about
And
it.
also in the great tradition of the Ruthless Variety program, we have hard transitions into our respectable guests.
I think she'll appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, Shelley Moore Capito. So we mentioned at the top of the show how we wanted to spend a little bit more time, not just on the campaign promises and the process and all of that stuff, but how these things actually get done. And one of the things we've talked about for the last, feels like a year and a half, 2 years, electric vehicles, California, mandates, it's just sort of offshoring of American resources to China to ensure that you can get to work. Well, one of the people who has been in charge of all of this, to making sure that a campaign promise goes into actually putting this thing into action and getting something done, is our next guest, a very good friend of the program, Senator Shelley Moore Capito.
Hey, good.
Welcome.
Yeah, great to be on.
It's a good
Thank you.
week.
It's been a great week. It's a good victory for sensible people, and it's a good victory for the Republicans.
It really is. So, look, just to put this in context, we've talked about this a couple of times on the
Right.
show before, but this bizarre electric vehicle mandate, and then a whole bunch of states decided what they were going to do is basically hook their economic future to California. Now, why anybody would want to do that?
Don't know. Don't know. Yeah, makes no
Right?
sense. Right.
But it's not just as simple as a new administration coming in and waving a wand and saying we're getting rid of all of
Not
that.
in this case, no.
It required action, House and
Right.
Senate, a congressional resolution to do all of that. Tell us about this process.
Okay. Well, let me kind of back up here. California, because it has special dispensations under the Clean Air Act, because back in the 60s, the air was so bad. So their California Air Board can apply to the EPA to accept themselves out of the national standards. So it used to be that they would say, we can't quite get to the national standards, give us. Now it's like we want to go far and beyond. So
Interesting.
under Governor Newsom and the carve out there, they decided that they want an electric vehicle mandate in order to lower the emissions. And so that means that next year, 30% of the new cars sold in California and 11 other states and the District of Columbia had to be electric vehicles.
Next year.
Next year.
I mean, that's the wildest part of this
It's
whole.
wild, and it doesn't include hybrids either.
Oh, yeah.
So a hybrid is now a gas-powered car in their minds. Then, by 2035, 0 cars sold in California, 11 other states, and the District of Columbia had to all be electric vehicles that are more costly, gives consumers no chance. They don't work right in a lot of areas. Say Northern California, where it's more mountainous.
Not
you
to
know,
mention what happens if you pull up in a West Virginia, stop, and you're like,
Right,
like
right.
your friends are never going to get the end of it.
No, not that. And then, like, can I plug this into your,
Grill?
your outlet over here? No. Yeah, go to the local tractor store and say, hey. But it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
And plus you want consumer choice, very expensive.
Yeah.
A lot of people stand to lose their jobs. They don't care.
Yeah.
So what happened was they applied in May of 23. Think of the timeline here. California did for the waiver. They did not get granted until December. Why? Michigan. Remember, that was I went up and campaigned for Mike Rogers, a really good friend of mine.
Yeah.
Very, very close race. And Senator Slotkin kept saying, I'm not for an EV mandate. Well, if they'd pulled this out then, it could have made a difference in that race.
Yeah.
And they knew it. So they knew how politically charged this was. So in December, they say, okay, you can have the waiver. And they put it into effect in January. Lee Zeldin and the president, with our encouragement, came back around and said, well, that's a rule. And they submitted it as a rule to the Congress, and that put it within this Congressional Review Act that we can take down within 60 days.
Yeah.
And that's what we did. And the Democrats kept calling process.
Hilarious.
Oh,
I mean, all of a sudden they're concerned with filibuster.
they all tried to kill the filibuster
Yeah,
2
every
years
one of
ago. And then they come back in saying, you horrible people, you want to kill the filibuster.
Which is
and
so good.
it's such a joke. And so anyway, we didn't kill the filibuster at all. We provided a narrow exception that says this GAO, I don't want to get too into the weeds, can't make a determination. The executive and the Congress can. This gives us a check on the executive. And so it's gone.
Yeah.
It's gone as of this morning.
Well, I mean, look, a lot of this is malfeasance by the Democrats to begin with, to try to craft something that they feel like is outside of the bound. And this is what they do in environmental policy all the time.
Right.
Is try to figure out,
Exactly.
is there a way you can craft something that's basically undoable? Like
And
you can't
untouchable.
do it.
Yeah.
And that they thought they got there. You, your staff, and I'll just say this just for you. There's nobody better to lead an effort like this because your relationships within the United States Senate,
thank you.
which look, it gets hairy. Colleagues
It
have
does.
different points of view,
It does.
but you've got great relationships with people across the ideological spectrum as well as with Democrats and everything. If you're talking about it, it's a serious thing.
Well, thanks.
And I think ultimately getting people beyond the process component that they may have had reservations about, because the substance, no reservations.
Right. Well, that's why they wouldn't talk about the substance. All day yesterday when we were arguing this on the floor, there was no talk about the substance because they know it's like an 80-20 polling issue. That's why they didn't bring it out. And I forgot to say, we did get one Democrat. And if you can guess who it is, Michigan.
Yeah.
And
She
Gary
knew very
Peters is
well.
leaving. So, he is under no obligation there. So I think, common sense just went out the window over the last 4 years.
Yeah.
Particularly in environmental policies. They're unattainable goals. They're expensive. who's going to pay for all this?
Right.
I mean, you're out, even if you're out in California and you're in the service industry, and I'm talking about at the lower levels, how are you going to buy an electric car? You're not.
Well, it doesn't work. I mean,
No.
for this stuff, you go sit on a highway for 8 hours with your
Right.
pickup truck. Like, there's no plug-in in the
Right.
middle of the.
Well, they had a truck mandate too, and that came down.
Yeah.
Deb Fisher from Nebraska led that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Okay.
we're very pleased about this because what happened was with the different ways of looking at this, if you kept focusing on the process, that's where they knew they might be able to pick out some members. This doesn't break the filibuster. It doesn't overrule the parliamentarian because we worked really hard to word
Yeah,
it
you
the
did.
right way. And so that's why we were able to get everybody.
Well, it was really, really well.
I don't know where they come up with these ideas. It's like there's some ivory tower somewhere where they're like, everybody in the world has to pay for the ideas that we come up with. Regular people, you're going to pay for.
Also,
what
it'd
it
be
is
great
that
if
we
we
wanna
could
do.
make sure that China's the primary beneficiary of everything
Right,
that
right.
we've come up
I
with,
don't-
right? Which is, I mean, literally, if you were trying to come up with something that's antithetical to our domestic advantage in the world,
Yeah.
it's stuff like this.
You look at like energy generation, close down federal lands, close down Alaska, close down offshore. Who does that hurt? That hurts the people that cannot pay another $50 a month on
Right.
their heating or cooling bill.
Right.
That hurts the retiree in rural West Virginia or Kentucky or wherever. And under the auspice of trying to help them, because they're going to be healthier. There's got to be a balance, and balance is not something that the last 4 years has seen.
There's no interest
But
in
it's
balance.
it's consistent because remember they've gone to war against coal families for decades.
Yeah.
They have no concept of the damage that this does to regular people, and I don't think they care. It doesn't seem like they care.
Well, I mean, I can go back. I mean, obviously, we're the second largest coal-producing state, West Virginia is, and the Obama really killed us. Hauled out our industry, hauled out our cities, our state capital. People started to leave. We ended up with huge addiction issues, and didn't care.
No.
No,
I mean, that's the
And,
thing, is it's like the
no,
whole
because
ancillary.
we don't know any better. And
Yeah,
we want
it's
we have
ridiculous.
some of the best environmentalists in our state. Do they look like Al Gore? No, they're the hunter and fisher people that
Yeah.
want to have clean water so they
Yeah.
can hunt and fish and eat the trout that they catch in the stream. But just because we don't look like we're heading to a what are those
Davos
conferences they have? A Davos conference. We don't care. And
You need the
it's-
horn rimmed glasses. I think that's like a prerequisite.
They have to be round.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
have to be round. Exactly. Not a lot of those floating around West Virginia.
No, but there's a lot of those in university presidents. I'll just say
It
that.
sure is. It seems like it's uniform at
Yeah,
this point.
yeah.
Can I ask you before we let you go? Taxes, obviously a big deal with reconciliation passing the first step here in the House. You felt Democrats and just sort of the general opposition doing, cheering for any sort of problem along the way, and all of a sudden, they got it done despite all odds. Comes to the Senate, you guys are going to do things a little differently.
Right.
You feel confident that we're going to get to a resolution here?
I'm very confident. We are going to have to do things differently. I mean, I think the general public needs to understand we almost have to,
Yeah.
process well enough in the Senate. We don't have the same processes, so without getting deep into it, there's going to be certain things in that House bill we cannot do, or the whole bill falls.
Yeah, we don't need a Byrd rule.
Right, the
record.
board rule from Robert C. Byrd
Yeah.
from West Virginia.
Right.
But we don't need to, and so I think we feel that we need to put our own imprint on it. The Speaker came to lunch at my invitation on Tuesday.
Oh, that's great.
He made it very clear that he thinks he can pass it. He did say, don't mess with it too much, kind of a deal.
Of course. Right.
Yeah, and so that's a not so subtle message, but we realize the constraints he's under. But we can't lose too many people either, and so we have a lot of independent thinkers at the same time, and with other ideas. So we should be able to, contribute that to the conversation, pass something on the Senate, and then I think we're going to have to work the differences out. And I think we will, and I think we will quickly. A lot of this has already been talked about.
Yeah, I mean, huge cornerstone sort of economic
Yeah.
component to everything that you're working on, everything the Trump administration is working on.
It's all about growth, pro-growth. We saw this after 2017. It got disrupted with COVID. We want to go back to that. And it's interesting because the timing is almost the same as it was almost 10 years ago in terms of small businesses, pass-throughs, the real employers in our country.
Yeah.
And so bringing back manufacturing jobs with the president. So we'll get it done. I'm not going to say it'll be pretty, but we'll get it done.
Well, I know you've worked very closely with the president. He has endorsed your
Right.
reelection
Yeah.
campaign. and I know you're also fighting for West Virginia here, and you got like 2 months. I mean, we were talking about time frame before you came on the show of when could this thing get passed? Is it an August deadline? Is it sometime sooner than that? But I know there's a lot of things you're fighting for in the intervening time. I wonder if you could talk about that.
Well, we do have two things running concurrently there that are going to be pretty steep climbs: reconciliation and then our annual appropriations bills, which John Thune and Susan Collins on our side have pledged to move through what we call regular order onto the floor so that members can amend and take a look at these bills. And that takes time. But the Speaker said, well, this will be on the President's desk by July 4th.
Yeah, that's tough.
That's 4 weeks. That's tough.
Yeah.
But we're going to probably strive to do that. Realistically, it might slip to August. I don't think they'll let it go. If you leave it out for the 5-week recess,
Tough stuff,
everybody's
man.
going to come back with a whole new idea of the greatest idea ever. So, yeah.
I talked to 4 guys at the bar. They seem to think this is a good idea.
Yeah, like how did we get to no taxes on tip?
Yeah, right.
Have you heard that story?
Yes, I have heard that story.
Yes.
It turns out there's a lucky young waitress out there
Exactly,
somewhere.
in Vegas.
Yeah.
Well, she was a very effective advocate for her industry.
That's why you get out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
why
I mean,
you
it's
get
the
out there.
importance of everybody acts like everybody goes on vacation in August.
Oh, yeah.
Like having served, with all of you and watched what you do, you actually it's your time to go back and talk to people.
Right.
Get input.
It's good. It's live a normal life and reconnect with your family, your friends. Find out who your real friends are, and but everybody's got an idea of exactly what to do. And some people think the best thing to do is pass the exact bill, but I don't think we can do that. Nor do I think we really. I don't think we will. Nor do I think we really can from a technical standpoint.
Yeah. Well, I know you're committed to it. If you're looking for a lawmaker who's not just talking about stuff, but actually has the wherewithal to get it done, look no further than Shelley Moore Capito, incredibly effective member of the United States Senate. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me on. Don't get any of those round glasses.
Did you?
No danger of that.
I saw you brought some stuff.
I did. Yes. So I understand you like to have when you have guests on, you like things that come from home states.
We do.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So of course,
We
West
do.
Virginia is very well known for our moonshine. I didn't bring you any moonshine.
Yeah.
I brought you some beer.
We worry a little bit about Smug with moonshine. I'm glad that you have.
304
Yeah. This is
beer.
Oh, look at this.
This
and
is
this
incredible.
is Smooth Ambler, which is made in Lewisburg, West Virginia, which is down near where the Greenbrier is.
Oh, yeah.
It's very good
absolutely.
bourbon, and you can buy it right here in D.C., both of them.
How about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at
And
that.
then the 304 is brewed in Parkersburg, West Virginia.
Nothing better than a little bourbon.
304 is our area code.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. So that's
Yeah.
the significance.
I can't wait to dig into this.
And I thought it was good. It's got the elephant on it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
For
You
sure. You
can't
got
beat
Smooth
that.
Ambler.
Elephant on it. I'm told it's a big University of West Virginia brand.
That is. That
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
So happy drinking.
Ah.
It's-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
3-day
You know
weekend.
the way to our heart.
Yeah, exactly.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Shelley Moore Capito.
Thanks.
She's so smart. She is working so hard up on the hill and obviously getting things done.
Yeah, I mean, look, this took a lot more doing than meets the eye because there were procedural hurdles that were involved. There were a bunch of different things, like on its merits, the idea that California can dictate what kind of car you can drive across this great nation of ours is insane. There was no difference of opinion from Republicans on that. But there was a real question about whether or not the method that they had to take in order to get this done opened a Pandora's box for Democrats to just like slam dango you if you ever got into power. Of course, we're aware of that because of what Republicans did to Democrats after they opened their Pandora's box with the courts. And we just like shoved it up their ass. So we're like, let's less of the ass shoving for us would be great. so there was some thought process of which Senator Capito took a lot of thought and worked with leadership to do and convinced colleagues it was the right thing to do, and they got it done. Big thing. Got to celebrate when people get stuff over the finish line. Everybody talks about stuff. Getting it over the finish line is difficult to do. Good one. She did it. With that, fellas, look, you got to like and subscribe. I'm just telling you. If you're not liking and subscribing and sending all to your friends, you're missing the worst stuff, the Diddy stuff. Not to mention a full comprehensive breakdown of tax policy.
Yeah, right. Do it all.
This Friday program. You got to get involved. And with that, I think we did it.
I think so. Absolute banger of an episode. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Senator Capito, and thank you to listeners. Remember, leave your prediction. When does Trump sign the big, beautiful bill? Date and time for tiebreakers. Winner gets to pick merch item from the store. That's
there you
awesome.
go.
So
Look at
until
that.
next time, minions, keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs. We'll see you Thursday. Stay ruthless.